Hi, I'm Neil Beck. I was a doctor in Perth, Western Australia for 53 years. I had 500,000 consultations, home and hospital visits, and in the early days, because we hadn't had a medical school and we were short of doctors and short of specialists, I did a lot of things that specialists do today. I helped 800 babies into the world, did many appendicectomies and tonsillectomies and vasectomies and broken bones and broken families and broken hearts. The conclusion I came to was that the most important thing is to be mentally healthy. When you're mentally healthy, you're mostly happy, you mostly perform well, and you get most of the things that you want and need. So, very important to be mentally healthy. Sadly, what I saw was that there were never going to be enough mental health carers for all the people who needed mental health care. Lots and lots of very troubled people got no mental health care and very few got enough. Unfortunately, mental health problems tend to cause people to have poor educations and to have poorer jobs and to therefore be poorer, and mental health care was either costly if you paid for it yourself or limited if you had health care insurance, or there was a long wait if you needed to go to a free government clinic, waiting lists of between 2 and 6 months. And on waiting lists, people's problems get worse and worse. Problems cause problems that cause problems. And in the late 1990s in Perth, we had a very big epidemic of heroin addiction. Heroin came late to Perth because Perth is the second most remote capital city in the world, and before there were lots of aeroplanes and lots of flights, we tended to get some things later than other cities. But in the late 1990s we had a terrible outbreak of heroin addiction, and I met young people who told me that they were the last person standing in their group of friends. Everyone else had OD'd on a heroin overdose. So I thought I'd better find out about heroin, and I started to work 10 hours a week in a heroin clinic. Well, I say it was an addiction clinic, but 99% of it was heroin. And I wanted to know what caused addiction, and I couldn't find anyone at any Perth addiction clinic could tell me what caused addiction, or thought that they should know what caused addiction. But in health, and it looked like a health problem to me, you always want to know the causes. If you know the causes, it's much easier to help people to get better, and they're less likely to relapse. If you don't find and fix the causes, even if they get better, they're likely to relapse if they've still got the same causes that drove them to drugs originally. I also went to all the addiction clinics in Sydney and couldn't find anyone there who could tell me what caused addiction. And then one day in the clinic where I was working 10 hours a week, I saw 15 heroin addicts, and I realized that 5 of them had ADD, ADHD. And then I looked very carefully and talked very carefully to people with addictions about their childhood and earlier life, and found that 95% of them, 19 out of 20 of them, had had serious mental health disorders and distresses, and it had been quicker and easier, and at first cheaper, to get relief from their mental distress through street drugs, which were all addictive, than through medicines. So I then started to do what I call, or what is called, dual diagnosis. Dual diagnosis is the diagnosis and treatment of mental illness at the same time as treating the addiction, and that's what every addict needed, and what no addicts in Perth were getting. And it worked very, very well. People who got dual diagnosis treatment got better much quicker and stayed better. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them. And I quickly got very, very busy because people with addictions just couldn't get mental health care anywhere else. At the addiction clinics, they did nothing about mental health. I had to sit in at the main addiction clinic to learn how to treat addicts, and really what I learnt was how not to treat addicts, because people with obvious serious mental health illnesses just got no treatment for their mental health. They were just given treatment for their addiction, and the treatment was mostly very addictive. Originally methadone, which is about 5 times as addictive as heroin, and then Subutex, which is about as addictive as heroin, and then Suboxone. And they had to be put on these addictive medicines because nobody was treating the causes, nobody was finding and treating their mental illnesses, and they all relapsed unless they were on addictive medicines. But the addictive medicines created awful problems for people. When they woke up in the morning, they didn't think about going to work. They thought about getting their next dose of methadone because they were hanging out for methadone. So it was very hard for people with addiction on methadone to have a job. So they were all poor because the methadone was costing them $6 every day. And that was a long time ago. $42 a week was a very large chunk of their unemployment benefits. So they were really poor, and a lot of them were homeless and cold and hungry. Very miserable situation. But the dual diagnosis worked so well that lots of people came to my clinic. The other problem for addicts was that they could not get appointments at mental health clinics. The mental health clinics just refused to see addicts. So 95% of addicts had a mental health illness, a serious mental health illness, and they couldn't get mental health treatment. They couldn't get mental health treatment at the addiction clinic because they just didn't do anything about mental health clinic. They couldn't get mental health care at a mental health clinic because the mental health clinics would not see addicts. They mostly couldn't get mental health care from their family doctors because family doctors were scared of addicts because of all the rules and regulations that the authority had in force. But the main addiction clinic had a 2 months waiting list. So if you had a heroin addiction and were desperate to get help with your heroin addiction and went to the main addiction clinic, they would say, come back in 2 months. And in that 2 months, people just a lot of people ended up in hospital, some ended up in prison, some ended up in a cemetery, and quite a lot of them ended up becoming drug dealers because they paid for their own addictive drugs by selling addictive drugs to other addicts. 17 months after I opened my dual diagnosis clinic, the big health department clinic's 8-week waiting list had shrunk to 0 because people weren't coming back to get repeat prescriptions for their methadone and their Subutex and their Suboxone, because dual diagnosis was fixing them. So the mental health clinic authorities who had authority over the treatment of addicts just wrote me a letter, no warning, no discussion, you can't prescribe Subutex or Suboxone anymore. They thought I wouldn't prescribe methadone because I'd said that I thought methadone was worse than rat poison and I wouldn't prescribe it. But people kept coming back and saying, look, Subutex and Suboxone is much better than methadone, but methadone and mental health care is better than Subutex or Suboxone and no mental health care. So then they banned me from prescribing methadone. So then I learned to treat addictions with non-addictive substances that the health department had no control over. What I discovered was that there was a non-addictive medicine for every mental health condition and for every addiction, but we just didn't get told about it because the pharmaceutical industry wanted everybody to take as much medicine as possible, and they sold a lot more addictive medicines than non-addictive medicines, so they kept informing the doctors and advertising the addictive medicines. What I realized was that the problem was that people couldn't get mental health care because the mental health care tools were weak. There were 2 mental health care tools. One was medicines. Medicines had 2 big weaknesses. The first was that so many mental health and addiction medicines were addictive. And that created all sorts of problems. And the second was that the medicines were nearly all tablets or capsules, and tablets or capsules work too slowly. When you swallow a tablet or a capsule, you have to wash it down, and it takes between half an hour to an hour to go right down your gut and start to get into your bloodstream and start to help. And it's 1 to 2 hours before it's helping strongly. So half an hour to 1 hour to start to work and 1 hour to 2 hours to work is just too slow for many mental health distresses and for addiction cravings. So medicine tools weak, and created waiting lists because these dangerous medicines, people had to keep on coming back to get repeat prescriptions, and they they caused the waiting list to be very long. And the other mental health tool was talk therapy, consultations, counselling, psychotherapy, CBT, call it what you like, but basically talking to the patient. And talking to the patient had 2 big problems. The first is it was too slow. If I saw a new addict patient, they nearly always had 2, 3 or 4 mental health illnesses, not just one. They nearly all had 2, 3 or 4 mental illnesses, and I can still picture a poor woman who had a heroin addict with 5 mental health illnesses whose work was managing a brothel. So to talk to addicts about their mental health illnesses, to find what they were, to find when they started, how they started, why they started, and to explain to them the treatment and how to deal with them, needed an hour. There just weren't enough hours in the day. So 22 years ago I started to develop better tools. Better tools was what was needed. I came to the conclusion eventually, not originally, but eventually I came to the conclusion that for mental health, which caused 95% of addictions, what people needed was very effective, easy, low-cost, convenient mental self-help tools. And the first 2 tools I had, can't remember which one first, but was videos and websites. None of the addicts had diaries, so they missed their appointments, missed more than half their appointments, but a lot of them had phones. And videos were the fastest, most convenient, most effective, lowest cost way for them to learn about their mental health illnesses. I had been explaining things to them and I just didn't have time to do it properly, and they tended to get very confused. It confused doctors, these mental health illnesses, which occurred 2 or 3 or 4 together. So you can imagine if it confused the doctors, it confused the addicts. And videos and websites helped them to do that. They could look at a website at any time of the day or the night, any day of the week, and they could look at a video over and over and over again until they got it, till they understood it. So about 15 years ago I made my first video. It was about 10 minutes, I think, and it got 10,000 viewings in 9 months, which was very good. So I thought, wow. So I made another 30, and I had 31 8, 10, 12-minute videos. I had a number of websites, but I ended up with just 2. The earlier one was mentalhealthvideos.a2z.com. mentalhealthvideos.a2z.com. That was about 14 pages with a lot of detail, but a lot of people wanted a shorter one, and so I ended up doing smilefixit.com. smilefixit.com, and smilefixit.com is a page and a half, and on it there are links to everything that people would want to know, so they could quickly look through the page and a half, see which things were important to them, and tap on the link. And I developed a checklist, 20-question checklist, so that one of my assistants could do a checklist with the patient, and that saved me a lot of time. But checklists were slow and cumbersome, and people couldn't do them at home. They had to come to the surgery. So then we realized that we had to have an app. And apps were costly and a lot of work, but we eventually got our own app, the Mental Fix-It app. And you can now go on to your phone and find the App Store button or the Google Play button and tap on them and download the Mental Fix It app, which is free. It was 10 minutes originally, asked 38 questions, and you had to tap your choice of answers to the 38 questions. But that took 10 minutes, and a lot of people just didn't have the attention span or the patience in their mental state and addiction state to cope with 10 minutes. So we reduced them to 19 questions and 5 minutes. And now we've reduced the Android one to 12 questions in 2 or 3 minutes, and you progress through each time. You do a dozen questions, and the questions that are not of interest to you don't get asked again. You get asked some more questions, so eventually you go through 81 questions. Might take you 4 or 5 sessions, but you get through them all eventually. And the iPhone version of Mental Fix It app is still 5 minutes, but we're in the process of making that 2 minutes also, and that's free, and with a few sessions you'll be able to go through all 81 questions. And people stopped watching long videos and they wanted short videos, and it took me a while to realize that most people, not everyone, but most people wanted TikTok type videos under a minute. So now I have 83 under a minute videos on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and on Facebook and on Instagram, and we keep revising them. You'll be able to tell the later ones. This is my favorite shirt. I've got 2 of these shirts and I wear them a lot, and the latest versions of the videos I've got these shirts, but the earlier videos have got other shirts, and we keep on revising them. So what were my tools? The first tool, 2 tools were videos and websites which started long and are now short. The third tool is the Mental Fix It app. The fourth tool is live streaming, which is what I'm doing now, because what I discovered is that lots of people love to learn stuff through live streaming. TikTok is only 9 years old and it has over 1 billion visitors each month. Over 1 billion visitors each month. And what do most people who visit TikTok do? They scroll or they watch under a minute videos. And what I eventually realized that was to get the help to the people who need mental health help. It had to be done through their phones, their smartphones. It had to be done through videos, under a minute videos, but also 6 to 20 second videos, and it had to be done through the app, and it had to be done through scrolling. So my 5th tool was powder medicine. Why powder medicine? Powder medicine because swallowed tablets and capsules take 30 to 60 minutes to start working and 1 to 2 hours to work strongly. But if you drop powder medicine on your tongue and suck it and absorb it through your tongue, it starts to work in 5 minutes. Your tongue is pink or red because the blood vessels are so near the surface, and when you sprinkle thousands of grains of powder medicine on your tongue and suck it, the tiny grains of medicine get into the bloodstream in 5 minutes. And soon you develop taste conditioning. And what that means is that as soon as you taste the medicine, it starts to work. Starts to work in seconds. You drop the powder medicine on your tongue, it reaches the taste buds at the back of your tongue, you taste it, and your body responds. It's just a faster version of Pavlov's dogs. Powder medicines have other advantages. Most medicines start as powder, and converting powder into tablets or capsules doubles the cost. So the powder is the cheapest form of medicine, about half the cost of tablets and capsules. The sixth tool was pocket powder medicine dispensers, which I designed and had made about 6 or 7 years ago. And we put the powder medicine in them, and you have them in your pocket. So your medicine's in your pocket. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, when you start to feel a mental distress or you start to feel an addiction craving, you whiz the pocket dispenser out and drop powder on your tongue, and it starts to work in 5 minutes, and soon it's working. After a couple of weeks, it's working in seconds, and it's working strongly in 5 to 15 minutes. The seventh tool is a meditation aid, a heartbeat meditation aid. Meditation is so valuable for people with mental health and addiction problems. It helps them to relax, to become calm. Their brain works better. Meditation is just wonderful, but the people who need it most, who are most distressed and disturbed, often can't learn to do it. It's too difficult. Meditation is a habit that you learn by focusing on your breathing or on repeating a word and stopping thinking about all your problems. But if you're very disturbed, you keep on thinking about your problems and you can't meditate. So what I did was I realized that if I cut a stethoscope short, people could listen to their own heart. And your heart beats loud and strong and very interesting, and people could stop thinking about their troubles by listening to their heart. So somewhere, I can't see what I've done with it, I've got a heartbeat meditation aid, which is just a stethoscope, which is very short, and you put it in your ears and you listen to your heart. And if you want one of those, email us at smilefixit.com, smilefixit.com. They're $25 plus postage. We can send them anywhere in the world. The eighth tool was another powder dispenser. This powder dispenser is a fruit powder dispenser. And why fruit powder? I found that the tools that work are tools that are piggybacked on something that people already do every day and are sort of strong human habits. Putting stuff in our mouth is one of the strongest human habits. We have to have stuff in our mouth from the day we're born to almost the day we die, and we love the taste taste is such a big human factor. And what I realized was that there was a global epidemic of obesity and diabetes, a terrible global epidemic of obesity and diabetes. And one of my favorite coffee shops that I go to, 5 of the waitresses are very obese. Well, 2 of them extremely obese and 3 quite obese. And it ruins their lives. And I don't know if any of them are diabetics, but probably some of them will end up being diabetic if they don't lose that weight, because everything is full of sugar. Sugar used to be very expensive and people loved it. They loved the taste. And so over the last 300 years they worked out how to mass produce sugar and make it cheaper so that everybody could afford it. And now you can walk into a supermarket, buy a big bag of sugar for a few dollars. So the food and drink industry puts sugar in everything. That's cane sugar in everything. Because it's so cheap, because people love the taste, it's easy to store, it's easy to transport, it's easy to use, and it's addictive. Sugar is as addictive as cocaine. If you don't believe me, do a ChatGPT or a Google search on the addictiveness of cane sugar. So they put it in everything. So people are eating lollies and chocolate with the chocoholics, and cakes and biscuits and sugary drinks. I've had patients that lived on Coca-Cola in the days when Coca-Cola had sugar in it. And that's causing obesity and causing diabetes. And what I found was that fruit powders were becoming increasingly popular. You can go online and in any country find big companies that mass produce fruit powders of all sorts. So I thought, if we put fruit powder, which is healthy, got a little bit of fructose, which is fruit sugar, but that doesn't matter. If we put that in a pocket dispenser, and when people wanted to have chocolate or lollies or cakes or biscuits or drink lolly water, they could have fruit powder instead. That would help to counteract the obesity and diabetes epidemic. But it also helps you to make and break habits. Our brain is so busy, it has so much to do, that anything we do a lot of, it turns into a habit. What happens is everything that happens in us and everything that we do is a result of a trigger and electrical messages from our brain, usually along our nerves, and chemical messages from our brain and our glands in our blood flow to an action part, which is a muscle or an organ which does something. So everything that we do a lot of, or that happens a lot in us, the triggers and the messages get stronger and stronger and stronger till they're almost unconscious, almost automatic, and they're hard to stop. And then our brain can focus on the difficult things, the unusual things, the new things, because the everyday thing, often things have become automatic. But our life changes. The habits we have in early childhood are different to the habits we have in our teenage years, and we have different habits in our adulthood, middle age and old age. So we have to change our habits. And 60 to 65% of our life is habits. And if you don't know how to make new habits and how to break habits that have become counterproductive, then you're going to have an unhappy and an unhealthy life. So what I've found is that if you want to make a new habit, and your new habit might be exercise, because you used to do heavy physical work like my two grandpas, and now like me and my kids and my grandchildren, you sit at a desk. My grandpas needed 3,000 or 4,000 calories a day. If I had 1,500 calories a day, I'd get fat. I did get fat, so I had to cut right down. So what I've found is that if you want to start a new habit, like doing an exercise, which you don't feel very much like doing, but you need to do exercise or play sport, if every time you think about it or you do it, you have a lovely taste, that helps you. You sort of reward yourself every time you think about the new habit or do the new habit. You reward yourself with a lovely taste or several lovely tastes, and then the more you do it, the easier it gets to do it, and then it becomes a habit. And you can also use lovely taste to break habits. How do you break a habit? Well, as we've said, the habit is based on triggers and electrical and chemical or hormonal messages that have become very strong and automatic. And what you have to do is you have to delay them and do less of them. And when you delay them and do less of them, the triggers and the electrical and chemical messages get weaker. And when they get weaker, you can delay them more. So say your habit is, as mine is now in my 80s, walking. I don't have to have a lovely taste to walk now. I've developed that habit, but for a long time I did very little walking everywhere I drove. Or say your new habit is learning a language, or learning a musical instrument, or studying chemistry or mathematics or something, and it's a bit of a task. You don't like doing it that much. I loved mathematics. I got distinctions in Maths A, Maths B and Applied Maths, but I wasn't too hot on history and geography. But now if I was trying to get red hot on history or geography, I would do it with lovely tastes. My these fruit powder dispensers, which are not available yet, but I've got about 100 of them, which I'm learning on, and some of my friends and patients are learning. We're ironing out the problems, and my favourite taste are vanilla and chocolate. That's not chocolate with sugar in it. It's high chocolate, whatever the taste is in chocolate with not much sugar. So what you can do, say you want to stop smoking. Smoking kills 7 million people a year in the world, and for everyone it kills, it ruins the life of many. And it's very expensive now. In Australia, the authorities have put very high taxes on tobacco to try to stop people smoking. When I was a boy, nearly every Australian man smoked, and now I think it's down to 13%. I know in some countries smoking is still very common and tobacco is comparatively cheap, but here black market tobacco and cigarettes is a very big business, because if you go to the supermarket to buy your cigarettes, it's going to cost you $30 a packet. Um, so if you want to stop smoking, it's a very strong addiction. It's very hard to do, and it's usually associated with a mental illness or a mental weakness. And nicotine is a mild antidepressant. It's a mild stimulant, and it helps you to focus and concentrate. So it gives you a mental lift, helps you to concentrate, and it gives you a bit of an emotional boost. So if you want to try to stop smoking, you will be able to, in a couple of months, have a fruit powder dispenser. Well, they'll be so cheap, you've got to have 3 or 4, so you've got different flavors for different days and different moods. And every time you think of smoking, you have a lovely taste, and you focus on the taste, and you try not to think about the cigarette. And when the taste starts to wear off, you have another lovely taste, and then another lovely taste, and you put off smoking for 15 minutes. And you only smoke 3/4 of the cigarette and throw the last quarter away. And that weakens the addiction to tobacco, so that the next time you can delay it a bit longer and smoke a bit less before you throw the last of the cigarette away. So what most people can do, so we found so far, on only a limited number of people of course, is that you can cut your cigarette smoking by 1/4 in 1 to 3 weeks very comfortably. And then in another 1 to 3 weeks you can cut it another 1/4, and then in another 1 to 3 weeks you can cut it another 1/4, and then in somewhere between 6, 8, 10 or 12 weeks you can stop smoking quite comfortably. And you carry your fruit powder dispenser in your pocket, because one of the curses of quitting smoking is relapse. You relapse, and then 3 months later something happens that upsets you, or all your mates are smoking and you feel the pressure, and you have one cigarette and you're gone again. Well, instead of having one cigarette, you have a lovely taste, and you don't relapse. Tool number 8. Tool number 9 is going to be phone treasure. You've always got your phone in your pocket, and what we're going to do, I started to do it but I haven't finished it, is have a package with lots of things that people love to look at or to listen to on their phone. And instead of having a lovely taste, they have a lovely look. They look at their children or their grandchildren or their girlfriend or their new car or their garden or lovely mountains or rivers or something that they love looking at, instead of having a taste. Or they have something that they love to listen to, some music, or someone talking about something, or a message that someone sent them that they love. So phone treasure coming later. But what happened was I realized that I must get into scrolling, that probably the best mental health tool is going to be scrolling. So now for the last 3 or 4 months I've been working on Scroll Plus. What's Scroll Plus? Well, people love to scroll because they can race through lots and lots of things, and my ChatGPT and Google search showed me that what people love scrolling for is that it somehow boosts their mood, a bit like nicotine does. And it also triggers their imagination. They discover all sorts of interesting things that they hadn't thought about or from far away. It triggers their creativity and their mood, and it's addictive. Scrolling is addictive. So I thought, I've got to put mental health into scroll form. But the reason why you can race through so much in scroll form is there's no detail. But mental health, you want detail, but you want detail about what you need, not what someone else needs. And I found that there are about 88 items that people should be able to scroll through. 88 mental health or addiction wants, needs, solutions. And each person, probably only 6 or 8 or 10 of those are important to them. When I was a medical student and we had all these big books, my biggest book was the medical on medicine, the physician stuff, and that was 1,200 pages. 1,200 pages of every sickness known to man, with all the detail about it, the nature of it, the causes of it, the treatment for it. But a sick person probably only needed 10 pages out of 1,200. Well, it's a bit more than that in mental health and addiction. Most people who've got a mental health problem have got 2, 3 or 4 mental health problems, and if they've got an addiction, they've got 2 or 3 or 4 mental health problems plus 1 or 2 addictions, and there's 6, 8 or 10 items that they need detail on it. So what happens is, with our Scroll Plus, there are 88 items, and you can scroll through the items, about 10 items a minute. So 88 in about 9 or 10 minutes you can scroll through a lot. But every time you come to one that's important to you, you tap on it and you immediately see a 6 to 20 second video on it, which gives you some detail about the item that's important to you. The items that are not important to you, say depression is important to you, but anxiety is not important to you, ADD is not important to you, post-traumatic stress disorder is not important to you. So you tap on the item that's important to you and watch the 6 to 20 second video on it. You don't tap on the others, you scroll through them. You can look at that 6 to 20 second video as many times as you want. So you can scroll through the whole lot in 9 or 10 minutes, but then of course there's the time that you take to look at the items that are of interest to you. So if you look at, let's say, 8 items, and on average they're 15 seconds, what's that, 120 seconds, so that's 2 minutes. But a lot of people don't have the attention span or the time to do that. So what they do is they just start and they scroll through as many items and tap on the items that are important to them, and when they've done enough and they want to stop, they tap the enough button, and the enough button immediately gives them a list of the videos that are important to them. So they get an immediate report which is the videos that are important to them. And then the next time they do a scrolling session, they first of all see the items so far that are important to them, and then they scroll further and they collect a few more important items for them, and so they go. So after 3, 4 or 5 sessions of 5, 8, 10, 12 minutes. They've seen the whole lot, and they've got all the items that are important, and they've got 5 to 20-second videos on each of them, which they that are important to them, which they can watch as many times as they want. And then each item that's important to them, the video has a link to a 1-minute video on that subject, which gives them more information, or to 2 or 3 1-minute videos on that item, so they can get more and more detail. Or they can then do the Mental Fix-It app, and the Mental Fix-It app always gives them the 6 under-a-minute videos that will most help the items that are important to them. So today we've got the Scroll Plus up. It's in a somewhat imperfect form, and we've got the Scroll Plus ebook up, which is in a somewhat imperfect form. And what I've been doing for the last week is revising the Scroll Plus ebook, and tonight I'm going to meet with one of my techie people, and we're going to revise the Scroll Plus ebook, which you can see at smilefixit.com, smilefixit.com, and you can download it. The Scroll Plus is free, but the ebook, it doesn't cost very much, but it costs. I try to make it as much free as possible, but I have to have some income to cover costs, and you can tell by the amateurish nature of some of them. We don't spend a lot on costly video makers. We do it in my lounge room, and yes, my techs are not $150, $200 an hour techs. They're master's students. One's just finished his Master of Information Technology. He already had a 5-year technology degree, but he's just done a 2-year Master's of Tech degree, and I have to pay him $48 an hour. And my other tech was a software engineer, but she's now doing a master's degree, and I have to pay her $40 an hour, so we have to charge a little bit for the ebooks. And now I must finish to do some more work. I do the live streaming on Wednesday, Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. Perth time, and Sunday morning 9 a.m. Perth time. But unfortunately 7 p.m. Perth time is 7 a.m. New York time, 4 a.m. LA time, and God knows what London and Norway and Sweden time. So I do the Sunday session at 9 a.m. Perth time, which is a more civilized, user-friendly hour in the Northern Hemisphere, because about a third of our viewers, and we usually get between 1,000 and 2,000 viewers each session. Yeah, I'm going to have to rationalize that because I can't continue to do 4 sessions a week. But please send me your comments, questions and criticisms, or email me at the email address at smilefixit.com. I always respond to comments, questions and emails, but I can't talk to people because of the numbers. So thank you for watching. I'll be back again Friday at 7 p.m. Perth time.